Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to the Academic Canuck podcast, episode 6 we are on, and I'm really excited for today's episode. Should be a fascinating one. Again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to spread this pod around and get her out there, you know? So today's topic is about dogmatism. Yes, dogmatism. And I feel I should explain first what dogmatism is, after getting some feedback on some of the words I use being too challenging or too pithy to understand in common parlance, which is absolutely fair. Sometimes I use academic language which does not fit in certain circumstances and comes off as confusing or even off-putting. So allow me to address some of the previous words. So in the last episode, I used the word epistemology, and moving forward, I will continue to use that word. Essentially what epistemology is the nature or origin of knowledge. Essentially, how do we know how to know? That is the best way I can describe it, and it's easier to just say epistemology rather than nature or origin of knowledge and knowing how to know. So that's why. Epistemology is the nature/origin of knowledge. The word methodology is an action or method that is used in a certain situation, most commonly in a study or in research. So in a Canadian fashion, think of it in a way as, a slap shot is a methodology to being successful in hockey. So think of it that way. A survey is a methodology to be successful in a research study. So, kind of think of it like that. The word empiricism, it's the perceived truth through sensory perception of sight or touch that is widely accepted amongst other people. Easy said and done. I mean, it's the closest thing we have towards truth. So that's that. Now, moving on to today's episode, dogmatism is the tendency to lay down principles as incontrovertibly true without consideration of evidence or the opinions of others. So, the tendency to lay down principles of truth without consideration of evidence or the opinions of others. This also stems from the word dogma, i.e., religious dogma, to bring it into another frame of mind. How familiar is this to you, especially after 2020? Well, it seems like it's even still going into 2021, quite fervently, I might add. When we talk about dogmatism, we tie this into religion and this overwhelming assertiveness towards one belief over another, or one's belief over another. In a way, we can thank the liberalism of Thomas Jefferson, America's third president, now commonly referred to by insane people as a racist. He advocated for anti-clericalism, which is the belief in religion, but that no one religion is dominant over the other. For example, Christianity can be practiced, but not to submit to religions like Islam or Judaism or even atheism, because there is, an anti-clerical stance, especially within a place like the United States, where the separation of church and state, no religion is supposed to take dominance over any other one. I mean, that's the reason why they left the old world to the new world. It's religious persecution. So that was a basis of America's founding. So that should remove all doubt, relating to dogmatism, that dogmatism really has no place either in a religious stance or in a social, cultural stance within our area. However, it still exists, unfortunately. In this episode, this will be less about dogmatism in certain theological or religious areas, rather in our current culture and society. So it's going to be a socio-cultural analysis of dogmatism. What are the areas to discuss? Well, first I want to discuss the culture of COVID, because yes, if you haven't realized, this is becoming less and less about a virus and more as a quasi, political media tool. And then I want to talk about the culture of knowledge, especially in the past, so far in 2021, but more deeply in the past 2 weeks. So let's see here. Let's start with COVID. I mean, the narrative around COVID is still pretty contentious, perhaps because people are just completely set in their ways about COVID, and there's been no room for nuance and discussion. Absolutely none. Although the tide is changing quite a bit since March of 2020, from what I'm seeing, this is good. And this will probably make way for some more discourse, but the dogmatic rhetoric around COVID is still there. And, I personally outline there's key tenets to this dogmatic rhetoric. First, COVID is always a dangerous virus. Masks definitely work to stop the spread of COVID. Lockdowns definitely work to stop the spread of COVID. You need to trust the science, in quotations, when it comes to COVID. And you are a problematic person if you do not follow the prescribed COVID rules. Okay. Essentially, what I gave you there was 5 of the COVID commandments based on the dogmatic followers of this typically, public health, media, governmental COVID rhetoric, so to speak. Okay, so I'm going to parse out these 5 commandments we have all been introduced to since the start of this. There is dogmatism definitely in these statements, and it comes from a lack of expanded understanding and just an ignorance to other scientific studies that are out there. I mean, I to some of you, you may have already, you may already know this, but I think it's important again to bring it to the forefront. So first, yes, COVID is a dangerous virus. It is. COVID is a dangerous virus that is predominantly age stratified, as in most of the casualties of COVID have been over the age of 70 and in long-term care living facilities. That is just a fact. Now, saying this is not to diminish the death of loved ones or of people who may have passed under the age of 70, which COVID dogmatists love to point out, that you don't care about old people. My response to something like that is, where were you when the flu has devastated long-term care homes years before COVID? I would know. Personally, I had 2 grandparents who were in long-term care homes, and the flu ravaged those homes every single year. Another response I have for them: why do you not support measures that protect individuals inside of those homes? For example, the amount of people that were calling for the heads of Martin Kulldorff, Sunetra Gupta, and Jay Bhattacharya from Harvard, Oxford, and Stanford, respectively, who created the Great Barrington Declaration. They were getting absolutely pilloried through media and online when they actually called for more protection of long-term and elderly congregate settings and letting people who are less inclined to be harmed to live their lives with general precautions, such as washing hands, coughing or sneezing in the crook of your elbow with a tissue, etc., and just general basic hygiene. That is a rational position of understanding in relation to this virus. Again, I get it. It is a dangerous virus for people in those settings and of that age group, and we need to provide the resources for long-term care homes. However, for a large majority of people, and I'm saying 99.9% of people, COVID is less dangerous than the flu. That is just a statistical fact. That is just the statistical fact. If you're under the age of 70, I believe 70, I can't remember if it's 65 or 70, but whatever the CDC said. But if you're under the age of 70, the survival rate is literally 99.8%. Okay? The second point, I talked about masks in episode 4, showing the Danish mask study that by all accounts, I would say, prove that masks are statistically insignificant to stopping the spread of COVID-19. I have also posted on my blog research prior to masks about other respiratory illnesses, studying the efficacy of masks, blah, 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 showing that they have no effect on stopping the spread of respiratory viruses. The dogmatism with this comes from, well, yeah, but still a mask is better than no mask. I would say sure, but since there is nothing with science that proves this, you see mask wearing as a feeling. It's a sign of an apparent good person in society, and it's more of a social comfort rather than a scientific fact. That's just proven. And this leads to me saying, yeah, sure, fine, wear a mask. Go ahead, wear a mask wherever you want. Just don't force me to wear one. That's all. Third point, I mean, the evidence that lockdowns work is negligible at best, considering nations that did heavy lockdown, mild lockdown, and no lockdown essentially ended up with the same curves that associate with seasonality, especially when looking at northern and southern hemisphere countries. Number 4, what is exactly the science when they say listen to the science? It seems like, the science that only you want to show and describe. I saw an exchange, especially between Rand Paul and Anthony Fauci during a Senate hearing. I'll post that link in the description. Rand points out that Fauci is guilty, that he keeps moving the goalposts and not being truthful about the variants. Fauci responded, of course, by saying that the variants are more infections based on the modeling provided. What the issue is here is that we have a whole year of studying that work from less than a year, I'd say close to about five months now, of studying the work from Lucy Van Dorp that show that variants are not more transmissible. And the transmissibility evidence used by public health is done through modeling, and modeling does not have a good record during this COVID pandemic. But to the dogmatists, of course, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable knowledge. And the fifth point, when someone calls you a problematic person for not listening to the prescribed narrative, I mean, is it a crime to be problematic? Last time I checked, being problematic is not against the law. For my frame of references and the certain educators, scientists, and philosophers I have read, being problematic brings new knowledge into the world. Being problematic is uncomfortable, but life in itself is problematic. And me being problematic may help you in the long run. Have the dogmatists think of that? I don't think so. I mean, this really shows the apparent religion of COVID, which is scary because science should be removed from dogma, of course, because the reason why science survives is through skepticism. Ideas and concepts must always be challenged and discussed. I mean, for example, I don't care how batshit the concept of flat Earth is, but I will give someone 5 minutes in a debate to state their point and their evidence, to which I will use my 5 minutes to discuss round Earth, attempting to challenge a flat Earth dynamic. I will do that. I will give someone the time to talk about flat Earth in a debate, to present their evidence that they feel is evidence. I mean, one thing I feel, especially people in academia, not only in science, but in many fields, use their dogmatism through a form called scientism, as in the science, quote unquote, the science is the only way to observe the world. Thus, the epidemiological science is the only way to observe COVID. No, that's not, I reject that notion. COVID requires an economic study. COVID requires a law study. COVID requires a mathematical study. God, does it ever require a mathematical study, especially when you look at some of the data that comes out of these places that literally people are showing you it's getting better, but the dogmatic types can't accept it. So as I said, there's a tide. I see some changing happening in 2021 with a different view, with a broad rational understanding, but it's definitely still in its infancy. Not even close to where I feel it needs to be yet. On another note, and I think all of this will conclude my discussion on COVID, because my general outlook for the past year has not changed on how I feel about COVID. So along with being tired of talking about it with people, I'll want to talk about other things and not focus on COVID moving forward. With that said, a video that came out, and I'll also attach it in the description, is a health roundtable led by the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, who is now being touted as the true king of the COVID pandemic because of his ability to get back to normal by lifting restrictions, as opposed to the ridiculous blunders of people like Newsom in California, Whitmer in Michigan, and Cuomo, oh God, Andrew Cuomo in New York, just as a few examples. I'm sure you heard of them in the news. And it's good to hear actual practicing epidemiologists, virologists, and immunologists actually speak on this stuff, which they had this round table. Names I mentioned: Martin Kulldorff, Sunitra Gupta, Jay Bhattacharya, Scott Atlas. Even in the round table, they mentioned Carl Hennigan from Oxford. It was a rational, sane understanding, devoid from the rhetoric we have heard from the past, which brings me to people like Fauci, Birx, Theresa Tam in Canada, other people in Canada like Bonnie Henry, David Williams. Okay, here's my thing of those people, the Faucis et al. Of the world. They are not practicing medicine currently. I don't think Fauci has practiced medicine in 40 years. What they are medical bureaucrats. Just listen to Fauci testify in the Senate hearings. No doctor who focuses on their practice is that good at dodging an answer in a room with tons of cameras. I mean, no doctor is that good at spinning rhetoric and being able to move the goalposts without pushback. It's impossible. That's why they have more clout in the political narrative than they do when it comes to knowledge about a virus, is because they are, Fauci, that guy is a political animal. I think I heard Jimmy Dore say that on his podcast. That guy is a political animal, and he's a professional liar, too. So... if you get a chance, watch Jimmy Dore's podcast. He's hilarious when he talks about Anthony Fauci. So I'll leave that section. I mean, feel free to watch that round table. It was really good, in my in my opinion. So the second part I wanted to talk about, and this might be a pretty quick podcast, as I'm under 20 minutes. I know I kind of went on a quite a vicious rant there. I don't know. Again, I have my coffee with me, No Name Coffee, as always. Because, when you're broke and you don't have money, you buy No Name Coffee. Nothing wrong with that. So the second part here is, this comes back to how we see knowledge in our culture right now, and I have to admit, it's not looking good from the outset. The lack of nuance and the ability to have a thoughtful discussion, the inability to have a thoughtful discussion is staggering to me. Even as a researcher in education, I don't know how, in so many instances, the human brain can go down this road of just blind willingness and blind belief and dogmatism in any narrative. I just don't know. I would definitely need an interdisciplinary panel of people from psychologists, economists, philosophers to really drill down how knowledge is formed and used in our culture and why we stray from these paths from time to time. It's definitely so interesting to think about. For myself, I can say I have some theories, but I can't conclusively say for certain that it's the case. I marinate on this from time to time and, constantly ask questions, answer them, and lead to more questions. Some might hear this and be like, God, that's a terrible thing for a mind to be racing like that. Well, it keeps me sharp. Keeps me sharp and thinking about stuff. So, I mean, to give an example, okay, here's a good one. For example, why is it so hard for individuals under the age of 40 to get into senior management positions, either in public or private sector jobs? Easy answer could be because people who are 50, 60, and 70 are in those positions. And I ask, why are those people in these positions? For example, why do Professor Emeritus, that's essentially retired professors, take up office space inside of institutes of higher learning? Why are you even getting up and going to work? I get that you may like it, but you are not fit for a modern educational or epistemological framework. Why are you see in some of these factories and some of these plants, or even in public sector jobs, a lot of 60, 65, other 70-year-old jobs, people working in jobs there. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are most senior leadership slightly under, at, or over retirement age? I mean, I can be cynical and say that they were just shitty with money and didn't prepare themselves for instances like a force majeure circumstances of the 2008 financial crisis. But is it more? I mean, I'm really trying to figure that out. Could it be pure arrogance that they and their generation are the only ones that can do these jobs? Again, I don't know, but it's baffling that, like Dianne Feinstein is still a senator. She's like 100. Like, it's I don't another thing, I think especially when we talk about the culture around knowledge and dogmatism, people are confusing the classic phrase of work smarter, not harder, with working simpler, not harder. That's not what working smarter is. No. That's not what working smarter is by working simpler. There's a disconnect there. I see how people interact with each other and just trying to find the most simple aspect to point out and then use it against other people. And it's infectious. I get sometimes on, when you go on social media, I think someone is just so dumb that all you can do is just try and dunk on them. And I get it. I'm guilty of it myself. Trust me. We've all been there in Facebook battles or Twitter battles. But it really is, it's an infectious, it's a sickness, it's as Gad Saad would say, a parasitic understanding on society and discourse in our society, for sure. And I think, we need to think differently when it comes to that. I also wonder about the fear of certain people. Why are people afraid, more or less, why are people afraid to call out other people to tell them that they're just flat out wrong? Some certain things, if we want to follow, Lewis, Chisholm, or Russell, are either A or B. And someone, sure, I get it, they can freely speak about C, D, E, or F, but you can tell them that they are wrong if rational evidence proves otherwise. If A or B proves otherwise, C, D, and F are wrong. Because there's no need to go to C, D, E, or F. You know what I'm saying? So, like, for example, something like Dr. Seuss should not be canceled. It's not racist, so why do we stay quiet about it? Is it a fear of being called out on social media? I mean, who gives a shit? Seriously, who cares? What? I mean, certain friends saying, you've changed, man. Well, you can throw it back at them and say, well, you've changed. Have you thought that your own Overton window is incorrect on how you see certain things? I don't know. It's just another example in the media right now are people who know better and know that the issue with immigration on the southern border of the USA is a massive problem and a crisis. But they do not want to say it because of certain social or political standings or reasons. I mean, like, do you think Joe Biden or individuals like Justin Trudeau will be mad at you if you disagree with them? Like, seriously, do you think they'll be mad at you? These people wouldn't give you money for a coffee if you were begging for it on the street. Are you afraid of getting backlash from the mindless drools that sit and watch CNN and MSNBC all day? You know, like, are you worried about them getting mad at you? Tell them to shove it. I like, who cares? You know, I'm sorry. I'm getting heated in this podcast. I can hear myself. I think that knowledge needs to come back when knowledge can be dangerous again. Taking risks, piss and vinegar to find answers again. That can get rid of this dogmatic spell that we're under by just following and stopping that and taking on some leadership for a change. That's pretty heated. I know. It's a spicy podcast. But I mean, you know, I just think, you know, moving forward, this idea of dogmatism is just, it's hurting us. It's hurting us with COVID. It's hurting us with topics around, you know, racism. It's hurting talking about, you know, whatever, entertainment, journalism, everything. This, I'm right. I will not listen to anything else, even though the evidence bears out that something else is true, but I don't care. I have a belief, and my belief is what's that. Well, you can believe it all you want. That's fine. But don't get all pissy when someone calls you out on it because you are wrong. Plain and simple. I'll tell people that they're wrong. They're just pure wrong. So, anyway, I'm getting heated. I'm just going to go. This is going to be a short podcast. I think we're just slightly under 30 minutes right now. That's fine. I'm just going to go move on to reading and watching. Really excited to read Coddling of the American Mind by Greg Lukianov and Jonathan Haidt. Really have been looking forward to this book for some time now. For watching, well, first, watch that video of the COVID roundtable in Florida. Ease your fears, first and foremost, about COVID. But I just turned on Netflix here, and I see a new documentary about the college admissions scandal. I am definitely watching that. I am definitely, immediately after this. So I want to leave you now, because I really want to watch that documentary. So with that said, thank you very much again for listening to this episode. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Follow on Facebook, follow on Twitter, do all that. Fuel my addiction for tweet dunking on people. Again, okay, thank you for listening. Academic Canuck signing off.